an idea that you brought up with me originally, and that was just how you navigated through COVID.
Well, for me, it was very, very difficult, especially the first 2 months. Right before the pandemic, I was doing well. I had a play in Vermont that had a good response, and it was moving, and people were talking about producing it to a higher level, even in New York. And all that talk just died. And me personally, I just didn't feel like writing whatsoever. I felt paralyzed. I was more concerned about how I was going to navigate the new world we were living in. There was so much uncertainty. And, we had our administration. Everything was confusing. Let's just say that the first 2 months, we had no idea what was going on. We didn't know where everything was going. And I was just worried a lot, not even for myself, but for my family, some of my friends, and even just strangers. Everyone just had this confused, bewildered look, even walking in the streets. And that took a lot of my time. It was heavy. So I slept a lot. I didn't even watch TV. I don't think. Only news. I couldn't watch like a whole movie. It was something I've never experienced before. And I've had many people, other creatives, writers, actors, exact same thing. A lot of them had this. I thought it was only me, and then you just would see people on like a Facebook or Instagram saying, I had one gentleman who was a playwright in Vermont. He's like, he's not going to write a play again. He said that.
Really?
He doesn't think he's going to write a play ever again. That's how devastating it was. The one thing that's helped me now is there's a writers group on Tuesday where some ex-members from where I took playwriting at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., they got together and just started a group where you sit for an hour and 15 minutes and you write. That's it. But everyone's watching you, sort of watching you. But they are there, in Zoom. The first 15 minutes we talk about what do you plan on working on today, and then we go around the room, say what we're working on, what we plan to work on, and then we just set a timer for an hour and 15 minutes, and afterwards we say how did it go, and that's it. And to be honest with you, that has been the bulk of my writing right now.
So you couldn't even revisit. Like I'm certain that I'm going to be speaking with visual artists who have been in the midst of a series, right, and they're used to being by themselves. You're used to writing by yourself, but they find they're still in a groove and they're not really thinking about the ramifications of the world around them and even the future of the arts. But that seems like something that really profoundly affected you in a way that you couldn't really push away.
Right. And I think a lot of it comes from one of the things I love to do. I like to write in public because the energy of the people give me energy to write. And a play is a moving art. It's people moving on stage, or people moving even on film. And you feel that energy of actual people. You listen to the conversations. You hear how they speak. You want to be as natural as possible. You want to be as realistic as possible with playwriting and film writing even. And I lost all that, even today, Starbucks where I used to write is closed, basically you can't sit. And that was my energy source a lot of the times. But I know there's other ways that I do write. I do a lot of meditating, and I write about things in my past or what's going on in the world. But to get that real energy of people, because writing for stage it's a movement of people, So I like to be around people moving. And so that hammered that a lot, and that was hard to ignore.
One of the things that you've shared with me in our other conversations is that you fear that you don't really know if there is a future for performing arts, music, and theater.
I think there will always be theater in some way, some form. I believe the future will hold. There may be some blockbuster theaters, a lot of smaller, low budget theaters. But I don't think there will be a lot of middle ground, because those theaters are really struggling, where they were like, because they were having a hard time with we keep getting more additions of online platforms, you know? Like YouTube is massive. I learned how massive YouTube was during this pandemic.
Okay, there's one takeaway.
Right now I watch YouTube every day. Netflix, Hulu, Apple has their platforms coming out soon. That's going to be pretty big. Disney. Like, there's so much content, especially with the younger people coming up, used to small, short streaming things, you know, such as YouTube. That's the way they grew up. And I think people in theater are kind of moving on a little bit, you know? I think they found how comfortable it was to be at home as well.
The only thing is, how do you remain an artist when you don't have your art form?
I think for me personally, because before playwriting, I was actually more into film. And I think I can maybe possibly get into more shorter content online, create my own maybe possible TV shows or shorter films. That's where I'm gravitating towards right now. That's where I think I've been more focused on a little bit. I mean, because I've written a couple of films in the past, and I actually went and re-edited a film because, like, man, I got to do something. Let me just go back. I was able to edit a couple of things, and that was one of them. I'm focusing. I think I'm going to keep my options open and I'm trying to try to be more well-rounded. I'm still going to write plays. I don't like Zoom plays. It's theater and it's up close in your face. Zoom, you know what I mean? You're like in this box and things sometimes don't match up, and it makes you look like you're not good at what you do, but it's just this platform. It just doesn't work well. And when theater comes back, which it will come back in some form or another, I will be ready with some content. And I think Zoom for me is helpful in like this play I'm doing, helpful for me meeting. I met like a number of new artists. I met a director who she has a lot of stuff going on in her Zoom world, and she has other people I've met through her. Like, I think producers are still looking for talent, or managers or agents or still looking for talent, and the only place they have is maybe a Zoom play. Someone asked me about 3 months ago, would I be interested in writing a short play, a holiday play? And my first instinct was no way. But then, you know, I said to myself, let me just write something. And I wrote it during that Tuesday night writers group. And I was like, wow, okay, that seems doable. It looks good. I wrote it specifically for Zoom, meaning that the people in the cast, and it's a family, and they have to have a holiday party through Zoom. So it's like really, like I couldn't have it anywhere else.
So it's about just taking charge and realizing you have to have kind of concrete steps to find your way back to where, probably not where you were, where you're going.
There is something I kind of enjoy about it. The performing arts, it's very competitive. During this time period, everybody's on the same platform level. Do you know what I mean? There's always that, especially in the end, they label us like, I'm a Black playwright. And so they compete. They compare you to other Black playwrights. And it's like this competition. And so that got cut off. There's none of that, at least. It depends who's in power, because I know they've been fighting for more Black representation in the theater and more in the management of theater, the head of theaters, and that's been moving a little bit. But we'll see who, even if they're Black, it doesn't mean it's going to help me, because I don't know who they are. They might not like me. It's not about color. They just might not like me or my work. And there's still a lot of uncertainty of financial and living. There's a lot of things that I'm concerned about, but I am finding myself a little more in my voice in the writing, and that has a lot to do with the little community I do have, that little writing group. I appreciate that. I really, that was really helpful to see other people who are going through the same thing, because we would talk about it, you know, talk about it a lot. They're going through the same thing. I mean, look everywhere around you, it's art. If you didn't have the buildings you live in, everything is I mean, who made, basically an artist made all of that, made everything, you know? In your apartment, look all around you, all the designs, everything. You wouldn't have music, you wouldn't have TV, you wouldn't have, that's artists. It's like one of the most important things we have right now. One of the most important things we've ever had. The creation of anything came from an artist. They thought like an artist, like what's missing, let me create it to benefit humanity for the most part. Well,
Sheldon, this has been a really valuable time spent with you. There's a lot here, and I really appreciate it. So
thank you for having me, Elizabeth. This has been wonderful.
Oh, I'm very glad to hear that. Thanks, Sheldon.